come from Cremore. I don't think it's too much of an assumption to say you probably haven't heard of it. It's such a small, out-of-the-way village on the Isle of Lewis that even people from the Isle of Lewis might struggle to point to it on a map. There are old stories about the village wall. There's no sign of it now, but some of the older folks in the area still talk about where the wall was, as though it was in living memory, which it can't possibly have been, unless they're a few centuries older than they seem, which I'm not ruling out entirely. Apparently it was a towering thing, grand to see, long since dismantled to build houses or roads. It's worrying though, isn't it? Why would a tiny village in the middle of nowhere and a thoroughfare to nothing at all need a wall? The land is rocky, good for nothing but sheep. There's no great riches to be had. There's really no reason why any people would ever attack it. So, what were they trying to keep out? And why are so many seemingly innocent stretches of land so strangely named? The One Night Shieling, Loch of the Seahorse, the Field of Blood, the Place of the Scream. This isn't my story to tell, but I'll tell it, because the people in it can't anymore. This story belongs to two girls called Sybil and Gormelia, and Farquhar the Black, their father. The girls were born and grew up in Cremore. Lewis folk are hardy and independent. As soon as the girls were old enough, they found themselves a spot to build their own home and start their own life. They chose a spot about 5 kilometres from their village, next to a dark and still loch. It's a foreboding spot, but Sybil and Gormelia, I suppose, were a morbid kind of pair. The girls didn't stay there long. On the first night after the building of their new home was complete, the girls, gathering water from the loch in the dark, heard a strange sloshing sound. They investigated the rippling splashes in the darkness and found an old lady struggling in the reeds. They may have been a morbid pair, but they were also compassionate. The old lady told them she'd come from another nearby village, Graver, and she was lost in the dark. Graver was too far to expect the Cailleach to walk home in the dark. The girls offered her a roof over her head in their brand new home. In so many fairy tales, compassion is rewarded. The old people in Cremore will tell you there is a world of difference between a fairy tale and a tale about fairies. The sisters were close. They only had one bed. Fine for them, but a little uncomfortable for 3. The sisters offered to let the Cailleach have the bed to herself, but the old lady was freezing cold, unnaturally cold. She asked to sleep between them so they could heat her up. In the night, Sybil woke up. The bed was damp. Mingled with the aroma of the peat fire they had lit to desperately try and heat the old lady was a tinny smell. Sybil looked at her hands in the dim light of the fire's dying embers. It was too dark to see that the dampness on her hands was red. But there's something about how blood feels and how it runs, isn't there? We know it. Even in the dark, we know it. When I say Kelpie, you might think of Falkirk. You might think of those grand and beautiful shimmering metal horse heads, wild and ethereal by the side of the motorway. But a Kelpie can take many forms. A horse, a fish, an old lady, or, as the Kelpie was now, a fanged half-woman, half beast, its wiry black hair matted with the blood of Gormelia, who it had gorged upon and then fallen, sated, back to sleep. Lewis folk are hardy and independent. Sybil didn't cry out. She didn't mourn her sister. There would be time for that later. Hopefully. She quietly slipped out of the house, leaving the Kelpie sleeping. She began to run back to Cremor, back to the wall that the Fae, couldn't climb. If you've ever done a couch to 5k, you know that it's not a short sprint. Even if you're a seasoned park runner, you probably wouldn't choose to run in the dark across the moors of Lewis, where the bogs lie hidden under the grass and grab at your feet like malicious hands. Sybil ran as fast as she could. When the Kelpie woke up, it missed her. It howled. It chased. Sybil heard the cry. She ran faster, too fast. A slippery rock darted under her foot. Her head found another as she fell. More blood, this time pouring from Sybil's head. Lewis folk are hardy and independent. Get up, she told herself. Get up. She got up. She ran. She trailed blood after her all across the field. The field of blood. Sybil ran and the Kelpie gained. As soon as Cremor drew into sight, Sybil drew up all of her strength and channeled it into a bellow, blood curdling but bold, the place of the scream. In Cremor, her dad heard her. He grabbed his bow and arrow. He ran towards the boundary wall to save his daughter. Sybil barreled towards the wall from the other side, the Kelpie, a horse now hot on her heels. Her father reached the wall, knocked an arrow, steeled himself. He burst open the gate, and there was Sybil. Running no more. Her heart taken from her and clutched in the mouth of the silver horse that was fading into the gloom, running back to the house where the sisters lived for only one night, the One Night Shieling, running back to the loch of the seahorse. All of these things happened a long time ago. So why am I even telling you this? Because the loch is still there, of course. But so is the house. Or its foundations, at least, slowly decaying, like broken bones. And when we were young, my sister went there. That isn't my story to tell. But maybe, soon, I'll tell that one too.